Good day everyone, Dr. Blob here. As of 16th of December, Arknights anime Prelude to Dawn is officially over. I rewatched the whole season before the finale, so I could have fresh memories when writing this. As a swift summary, the first season covered the actination of the reunion arc. Yes, that's how it's named in the game. Starting with the retrieval of the Doctor, the escape from Chernobyl, the arrival at Longmen, the first skirmishes with Reunion there, and Misha's story. Something I have to admit is that the animation was top-notch. I mean, plenty of the frames of the show are worthy to become wallpapers on their own right. The experience of director Yuki Watanabe can be felt all over, especially on the attention to details and shot composition. If there is one thing I definitely can't call this show, it's ugly. Managing to convey situation with ease, either with expressions or the environment alone. However, I must be honest, this was far from perfect. On one side, we all knew they will stick to the game story as much as possible, which meant there will be some things lacking here and there due to how awkward the writing was at the start. That would be understandable if it wasn't for the plentiful amount of side stories filling the gaps of that part of the game story. We did get some hint of those here and there, and even a solid setup for Guard's story. Yet that's it. Granted, some of these could still make an appearance on the confirmed second season, but the first season is when any anime needs to make a strong first impression for audiences to keep watching. It is pretty much pointless to show the goods right after half of them already left. It felt like they tried to simplify the story at some points, with most things being explained as they were happening. Of course, the Doctor serving as the POV character and framing device for these explanations worked due to their amnesia. Personally, I'm a fan of heavy talks and discussions in my media, so while I don't like how light the anime came to be, I know why they did it. It will make things easier for newcomers to understand. Sadly, they didn't make use of the extra time earned by these simplifications, as the show seems to crawl into a halt in the middle of the series. Episode 4 and 5, especially episode 5, focuses so much on ambience that the plot seems to have been put on a halt.
It's bringing love! Don't let it get away!
Break its legs!
Yes, I still think the storytelling on the location alone was enough to convey what's life like in the slums, but they take so much time out of the story, it feels like they are padding the runtime in an already short season. Not only in story but also in animation, as episode 5 is without a doubt the least visually appealing of the series. This is where most people drop the show, and personally I can't fully blame them, as it lacked either a narrative or a visual oomph to maintain the interest. That is, until episode 6 came around and started to kick the plot into gear. If we compare it with the more action-packed stories, Arknights clearly lacks in the action department. As well animated as they are often on the short side. But I think that is the point. For starters, to label it as an action anime is a mistake in itself, as the story is not meant for it. This is a serious, gritty and raw story depicting a world where the segregation of whole groups of individuals is not only normal, is expected. While the game does have its moment of awesome and badassery, it never deviates itself too far from its intended goal, to show the resolution and action of the cast trying to fix such a broken world. Once I look at the story through this mentality, it kind of fit into place. Does it fix all the problems? No. The plot is too mild at times, characters enter and go with little introduction, and while they manage to perform well most of the time, there are also characters who suffered a lot due to this. Where is my 17 pages long essay of an introduction? Not to mention, the animation is somewhat inconsistent at times, and the elephant in the room. The ending felt incredibly abrupt. Granted, it was meant to be felt like that, as the reunion arc has but started, but then again, leaving it so open felt quite a bit jarring. Does that mean it's just an average adaptation and nothing else? No. The part where I think the series shined the most was in its characters. While very simplified in some areas, many characters managed to take the spotlight with ease. For example, Amiya was given a personality that, while flip-flopping between overly kind and overly determined, we have to remember, she is 14. Of course she will act naive and childish sometimes. She still has to grow. Despite this, she was able to demonstrate how far she will go to protect those dear to him. If anything, I am surprised how much focus was given to her in the story, as most often than not, gacha anime tend to leave the mascot unit to the sideline in order to focus on most famous characters. Here, Amiya had a chance to show why she is the CEO of Rhodes Island and the moral bastion of the operators. Yet it's not like she's always determined and knows what she is supposed to do. Noticeable in the last 2 episodes, when her character gets close to a breaking point as a consequence of her actions. And this is not a, oh well, that happened, let's move on, sort of deal. We are shown how much this impacted her both emotionally and morally, where she would have reached a despair horizon had it not been for the second character I was surprised the most in this series. While I didn't expect much from the Doctor, as they don't talk that much at the beginning of the story, the anime made sure to keep them around at all times, giving them the closest to a face in order to portray their inner thoughts and emotions without the need to spew them out into dialogue. Personally, I think this was brilliant, as it kept them involved in the story without removing their original silence in the early game. And I never mind them having such a feminine sounding voice, it is the standard used when trying to convey an androgynous character in anime, so it wasn't a deal breaker for me. While I think the relationship could have been more developed, like seriously they only had 2 heart-to-heart in the whole season, their bond was clearly shown whenever Amiya and the Doctor interacted. Neither was a passive watcher of the actions of the other, as they worked out one another in a surprisingly organic way. And this is where the real focus of the series lies in, the characters. It makes sure to portray each one of them as individuals existing in this foreign crapsack of a world, each one adapted to it in their own unique way. The characters who gained more out of this were without a doubt Chen, Franca, and obviously Misha and Alex. We got to see an overly serious Shen who's clearly trying to be as tough as possible in front of others, yet letting herself live out of it in front of those she respects, slowly getting closer to Amiya as the series goes on, but without betraying her harsh personality. Good foreshadowing for those who know, and a nice hint for those who doesn't. Franca was more than just someone who throws quips and jokes here and there, as we get to see how she admires Rhodes' ideals and is willing to follow them, which will eventually make her a fully fledged member in all but name. Personally, the anime makes me like her more than in the game. And of course, the characters I think gained the most out of this were the tragic twins, Misha and Alex. In-game, we spent very little time with the former and knew even less of the later, making their story feel rushed and kind of an afterthought. Yet in the anime, we managed to see more of their personalities and understand why they acted as they did. It was a bit rushed though. Alex was more than just some edgy revolutionary who somehow managed to earn the respect of his troops. His zealotry for the reunion cause earning the trust of those under his command through pure devotion rather than actual respect. It kind of answers why no one wondered how did Alex manage to walk off being stabbed in the chest. On the other hand, we have Misha's story, which like Alex, was marred by her experiences as an infected, getting closer and closer to the despair horizon. And while she was convinced by Amiya's words at first, actions and inevitably louder. With nothing else to lose, yet wanting to end her suffering while doing something meaningful, she dons her brother's cowl, fully committed to a cause she barely knows or even believes in, just wanting to end it all. A dark example of how pretty words can solve anything. Overall, I don't think this is the perfect anime we fans of the game expected, making it even more confusing for newcomers. No wonder many dropped it around the halfway. However, I don't think this should be shelved and forgotten. Yes, it's not perfect, but it was far from mediocre. This is Yuki Watanabe's directional debut, and still has some room to grow, as we were able to see the full fledged of his skills in the later chapters. So, for a first season, I think this is a very good result. Not perfect, but promising. So long Joestar Pictures learn from their mistakes and continue to improve, I can see this anime slowly becoming more popular. After all, we know the story becomes far more engaging later on. Maybe properly making use of the side stories to fill up the gaps in the narrative, or trusting a bit more in the audience's intellect to follow the plot, but I digress. While I give each episode an individual rating out of 5, I give the series as a whole a more definitive qualification out of 10, considering both fans and newcomers, while we got to see the story and characters we know and love. Some things are hard to ignore regarding the use of side characters and the simplification of the story, earning an 8 indecent. Newcomers, on the other hand, might find the story interesting and the world and characters enticing, but development might be either too slow or too fast, depending on the character in turn. They will likely use a 7 to rank this series, compromising in an overall 7.5 rating for the first season. I have pointed out a lot of things I don't like, so let me focus on what I did like, namely the sound design and camera work, the expanded roles of some of the characters, character interaction receiving more screen time than in the game, the fact they never touch upon the character's animal traits, the insane attention to detail in some scenes, and the nods to future developments, and of course, the whole work needed to adapt the game into an anime format while keeping most of what makes it so unique. I thank Yuki Watanabe, Joestar Pictures, and Hypergriff for the dedication put in the anime adaptation, and really look forward to the second season. Of course, these are just my thoughts. In no way, shape or form do I consider them to be absolute. If you don't like the anime, you are in your right. And please be sure to share your thoughts in the commentaries down below. Or if you want to share what you like, by all means, don't doubt to share it as well. All commentaries are welcome so long they aren't rude or spam. For now, this has been Dr. Blob, thanking you all for your time, and wishing you all a great day. And with the anime over, there is only one thing left for me to do. See you next season! And for you all, until next time, stay healthy everyone.